one. That was Miguel Adorn. News earlier today. Paul Mooney was lost. 79 years old. One of the best comedians I've ever had the privilege of seeing. I can say this almost every single time I was around Paul, I learned something. He's one of the rare individuals I can point to in my life where I know that I learned something throughout every interaction. Sometimes it was how to be a performer. Sometimes it was how to be fearless. Sometimes it was like how to harness anger and unappreciation. And sometimes it was what not to do. Now, Tom, I hear often, in eulogies or when people are speaking of people who've gone on, they will say complicated. But Paul embodied that. He was a complicated man. I always watched him perform because he had a way of delving into subjects that very few people would do, but in a way that was indignant and angry and acerbic. Paul wasn't a warm man, but he was complicated. He was committed to the thing that he loved, which was comedy. And he would let you know about it. And he would let you know what he started, how he started. Paul often felt, in my exchanges with him, that he was unappreciated, that people didn't understand how great he was. And he would let you know it all the time. He let you know it in his mannerisms or sometimes in his conversation. I think that there are people who that's like a buckets that have holes in them. You can never fill them up. But he was truly a great artist. I remember the last time I saw him was in Oakland. We were doing the Comedy Get Down. It was myself, George Lopez, Sid the Entertainer. And after I'd gotten off stage, I'd gone to Eddie Griffin's room, and there was Paul Mooney sitting in a chair with chicken crumbs all over his chest, and that high blood pressure cuff because the ambulance had been called. And George Lopez and Sid walk in, and George goes, "Is this how it ends, Paul?" in Paul Mooney's voice. And we all started laughing. It was the very last time I got a chance to see him. I would remember there would be times when you would hear about him being on stage and kind of forgetting what he was doing. But at the end, people loved what he did, and you knew that you were going to see something while he was performing that you did not see in anybody else. And I think that it is sad for me, at least for him, that he never got what he felt like he deserved, because I think he moved the needle in comedy in a way that few people ever have. I can say this about Paul. I don't think he was the warmest man. Oftentimes, I couldn't tell whether he was smiling or sneering. I couldn't tell whether he was happy to see you or being sarcastic. But I guess that was the epitome of who he was. But I remember there was a place in New York. There's a place in New York called Blue Ribbon. And it is where, it's in Soho. It's where all the great chefs, after they're finished cooking, they go to Blue Ribbon. That's where they eat at. James Beard Award winners, Michelin star restaurant chefs, these great men go to another place after they're finished doing what they do. After they feed people and cook for them, they go to that place. That's where they go to eat. That is how I felt about Paul Mooney. No matter what I was doing, Paul would oftentimes have a show after a show after a show. So they could start at 12 or 1 or 2. And he would always have champagne on ice. He would always be sitting down, and you knew that you were going to hear something. I think that he was a complex man. I think he was one of the greatest comics we ever known. And I think he was a restless soul. But I can tell you what, there are goats in the greatest of all times who are called goats. Paul Mooney was a lion. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.